Hello, S&P here with Cockroach Entertainment. I want to apologize for the length between this video and the last video. Life has a way of getting in the way, and with tax season and finals were here at the local college, so kept me kind of busy. But today I wanted to go ahead into designs and take a look at some of the more advanced systems. So we're going to go ahead and just use this design to kind of showcase what we're looking at. So this is the Dwarn Labash that we worked on last time. So let's see. Let's go ahead. Alright. Not going to deal with Shrine. Maybe if we have time at the end. Alright, so one thing I actually did not discuss is hyperdrive in the last thing. So hyperdrive, we were talking about how you got to keep systems out, keep systems protected, and stay out of what's really I don't know what you want to call it, a kill zone in the front of the ship, where you have fire coming in from this direction and fire coming in from this direction. So a great spot for a hyperdrive would be some spot where if we can trace a line, it hits right about here, and if I'm going to say, trace this line back, yeah, this hits here as well. So an ideal spot, if this were a hyperdrive ship, we're not going to save this, so I'm just going to pop this out. This is a great spot, because all fire from both sides is going to vent out here, and this being your escape from combat on a hyperdrive ship, you're going to want to keep it in a spot safe. And I don't play with hyperdrive often, much more a fan of different FTL systems, but if you're going to use it, just having generators separated in case one goes down, just one as a smaller backup and the other as your main drive. So that wouldn't be that bad. I'd probably shift which one's the backup because that's a little too far back for my happiness. But I digress. Let's go back without saving, boot the ship back up. Equipment. Alright, so today we're going to kind of look at how a lot of these other things work and get into modifiers. So equipment. Construction bay, self-explanatory. If you have a ship with this doing fighting, you're probably doing it wrong. So, self-explanatory, not a lot to get into. Cloaking mesh, kind of nice because you get to cover your entire ship with it. Again, not a fan of cloaking, but if you're going to use it, typically trimming down on armor will help. Because, let's see, looking over, oops, I knocked out a section of armor there. Center click, center click. It is not exactly cheap, each hex being... Oh, but it's variable. The larger the cloak, it's got a decreasing cost. Okay. Again, I haven't used it all that much. If it's useful, make sure you do it. I'd trim down on armor to keep the cost of your ships down. Is this affecting maintenance? It is not, so it's okay for your ships as long as you can space yard them, shipyard them, and get around the cost by building them across multiple budget cycles. Go for it. Graviton condenser, ion cannon. Ion cannons I typically do not put on ships. I really like using them, but I've always found it more cost effective to get the ones from the artifacts that you find across the galaxy. But if you don't get it, I would recommend having a standalone flagship that you just create for the sole purpose of mounting an ion cannon in it, and try to focus a fleet of smaller flagships around it. Have it jump in with whatever FTL system you're using, ion whatever ship you're trying to hold in place, so that your carrier or killer ship can focus on knocking it out. Mining laser, again, if you have a combat ship that focuses on mining, not exactly a good thing. Ore processor. Alright. Self-destruct device. Does a lot of damage and scales. Does it actually mention on here? Yes, alright. It functions on the same similar rule for torpedoes. So damage 93, radius 240, 241, and the radius should scale as we start adding more and more. Now you'll notice it is taking up power. So it is going to increasingly large numbers of these, or sorry, a larger self-destruct device is going to cost you in terms of power, which is going to cost you double for your ship. Theoretically, it could be made work, since there's not really a penalty to your ships blowing up. If you're going to build a ship that's going to do this, focus on a suicide bomber kamikaze ship that is built to jump in the middle and hope that the enemies target it automatically. And at that point, it'll die. I'm pretty sure it functions similar to the torpedoes in the fact that friendly fire isn't a thing. And so you really don't have to worry about, well, my fleet's in the way, I don't want to knock out one of my own ships. You won't be. So, all good. That is the self-destruct. Oh, come on. There we go. Alright, so back to equipment. Skip drive follows the same as my ion cannon. I really like using this, especially when you get people who, let's see if I've got a ship here. Alright, so, is there a good example? Decent example. So, ignoring the missile launchers, you'll notice, let's see if I can turn fire arcs on real quick. Oh, there we go, fire arcs. Alright, so let's say their design, put a little extra armor there. All of the guns are pointing forward. And like a lot of designs in the community, like say, is this a torpedo boat? Let's see if I can find a good design to look at here. Oh my goodness, alright, yeah. Alright, so there's some good designs in here. You gotta look around and actually find them. Recent designs, perhaps. Someone build a ship that they actually intend to fight with. Destroyer. Alright, there we go. It's got carpet bombs, but mostly all of their weapons. They've got some roundabout shoot behind weapons, but their weapons are shooting forward. If you can get behind them, then you're going to save... where was I? Here I go. Alright, back to Lavash. If we have a skip drive installed, then, well, the bigger it is, let's go ahead and explain the skip drive first. The bigger it is, you'll notice that the cost for moving the ship is going down. So the larger the drive, the more effective it is, but if you have tons of energy and you're not really using it, one hex will do. It's also not taking up energy, as you can tell, so aside from just costing money and maintenance, they're pretty easy to put on ships. There's the undo button. Alright, so skip drives, I like pulling the one out of the artifact, but in terms of a ship, once you get this tech, having one on board in a non-central location, they're not exactly key, because you're going to be using them to try to quickly get out. If you've got a hyperdrive, you're just trying to jump a little ways so that you can use your hyperdrive and get out of there. But they're really effective, and one of the better systems to keep on a ship. You are going to be micromanaging, so if you're going to have it, at least make use of it by watching it. Tractor beam, very good. Most of my scout designs, let's see if I've got one here to look at. I do not import. Surely one of these has a scout. Lauren, gunboat, missile boat, scout. There we go. Let's go ahead and import that. There we go. So I just have a tractor beam down the middle, two basic commands to keep it alive. If I were to rework this, I'd probably put one of them back here. Just kind of do that so that it's got a little bit more survivability. But this way, while it's out scouting, hey, I found something I want, grab it, take it back. It's small, doesn't have a lot of thrust, but hey, it can get your job done. Also, just having a couple scouts like this, if you're playing Fling, you can drag your beacons or various other structures out into deep space, and until the enemy gets fairly late in the tech web, they're not going to be able to detect it unless they happen to fly over it. So, very useful ship. Kind of helps the scouts have some late game appeal, where their size isn't really effective for anything. Let's see, other equipment. Alright, so we're through all the equipment. Modifiers. Let's hop back over to Labash. Modifiers. Alright. Coolant system. Decreases health. Turns your thing into a glass cannon, so to speak. So the disadvantages of this system and the advantages. Alright, so the advantage, plop one down here. This system is behind a whole lot of armor. It's really not going to be taking fire. I mean, it'll take fire here, take fire here. I might not use this in-game. Let's just select something so I can get that. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I might not do it in-game. I might. It's very nifty. I get extra fire. Let's see if I can go back to the equipment. No, modifiers. The reload speed is increased by 20%, so therefore potential damage increases by 20%, and health by 50%. So this is kind of a middle of the road area where I'd use it, where I would really like to use it. Let's go back. Is the station here? Let's see, import designs. I thought we designed a station. I'm not even going to try to guess. Yes. They have a rocket station. Not exactly the same. I forgot that was my Leaf people. Alright, so yeah, this is a case of where I would definitely use it. It's inside a station. It's inside some serious armor. In this case, it's the sinew from the plants. I was looking for the torpedo station I designed at some point to defend my systems. That might have been a Maloran. Maloran station. That's an old design. I haven't used that one in a while. Alright, so I might not be able to find it. Probably should have done that before recording the video. Pulper, Wolf, Mincer, Mamba, Koala, Koala. That's it. There we go. Alright, so this is the one we were talking about with having compartmentalization to try to keep fire out of various sections of the ship. So here, I would definitely, modifiers, I would definitely put the coolant system in because, probably would put it inside one. I wouldn't use two with two. Okay, well, you can't use two, apparently. There we go. But, so by decreasing the health, not a problem. Everything's armored. But, at the same time, my torpedo's reload speed is increased by 20%, which is ridiculous for torpedoes because their reload is so long already. Let's go over to weapons, torpedo. See, where's the reload on? Never mind, it was already there. I should have looked. You can see that I pointed with my finger. T. Alright, so the reload goes down to 20 seconds. It was 25. That's not inconsequential, and because of its radius explosion and everything, very useful. Next modifier. So, bulkheads. Bulkheads are very good when... what am I thinking? You're using a system near the outside. So let's see if I've got one. That's a good example. Alright, the Urus, that was a support ship. I haven't made a design like this. So let's go back to the Labash and work it out. That stayed selected. Alright, so let's say I did not want this armor up here in the front. I'm trying to cut down on maintenance and cost, and I'm not worried about this ship moving. I'm just going to keep my armor back here. What I might do is I go to the modifier. The bulkhead increases the health. So if we take it and we set it, just say, and the bulkhead, well, I guess I'll show you once we get it in here. Let's trace out this command, hits here. So let's put a bulkhead here, and a bulkhead here. So that's what's actually one off. Alright, so get off of this so I don't have that thing floating around. Let's actually compare the two. So here, you'll see health is at 14. Health up here is jumped to 35. Compare that to armor of the same size, 46. Damage resistant. We don't get any damage resistance from this. Okay. Thought we did. Just adds to health. But the health is almost comparable to armor at this point, with the actual square being 63, higher than armor. Now, there is no damage resistance, so each hit won't be reduced. So against missiles, this is more comparable to armor. Against railguns, you're still better with the armor. Against lasers, you're definitely better with the armor, because the lasers cause damage over time, and over each tick, the damage resistance kicks in, and can save you a lot of damage, but if you're fighting missiles or people who really like torpedoes, like myself, then the bulkhead and lack of armor is probably the way to go. Because, sure, while each one is relatively comparable, this whole thing is now armored. And let's say I had a lot of money, I forget exactly what it was, but sure, close enough. Something's off. Okay, no it's not, just looked off. So even here, where we were talking zone of death, I've now, once I get 2 of these buggers going, I've now drastically increased the health of this front, such that it's going to take a fair amount of punishment before it goes down. And let's say I was worried about, the other use is, let's say I was worried about critical hits coming in, I can just stack a bulkhead behind there, and now I've got that 63 health, and I've basically got this turret as an outside square while still having an armor loop behind it. Now because, let's see, it should mention it on here, modifiers bulkhead. It does increase, if I remember correctly, it is a exponential-ish increase. So that increased the cost of the subsystem. So 18.5, 35, 69, and it just starts going up drastically. But the health of each square is now 120. And now it is 141, so straight 21 increase. 98, 21 would be 119, so not quite. Still, it increases the defense, but so maybe you might put 2 in, you might put 1 in. I usually use 1. I like armor, I really like that damage resistance, it's good all around. But I digress, that's bulkheads. Next, smooth mechanism. Decreases supply cost, decreases turret firing arc, and decreases projectile speed. Alright, so both of those affect things like this. It shoots at a speed, and it has supply cost. So, and turret firing arc. So let's compare the arcs. So where this is useful is not this design where I'm trying to cover everything else. Let's go back. Let's look at that space station again. So this does not have a firing arc, or well, it does, but its firing arc is hard-coded at 100%. So this would be a wonderful location, because you'll see our supply cost is 28.5, 19.9. We can now shoot more torpedoes for the same amount of supplies. It's wonderful. Also, since this is a defense system, I really don't care. Let's go back to the modifiers. The projectile speed, this is a deterrent. It is built in a system for the sole purpose of convincing people not to be there. And if they're there, ideally this station is orbiting a planet or at least orbiting the star, providing system-wide defense using the long-range torpedo. We'll get to that with the targeting sensor. So people are going to have to deal with this station if they're in the system, which means they're going to be coming toward me. I'm not too concerned with how fast it gets to them, because it's going to, or they're going to leave, in which case the torpedo has done its job. So smooth mechanisms, this is the ideal placement for them. It can also work if you're doing a long-range deployment fleet, say one that's intended to capture planets. If you're worried about your weapons eating up all of your ammo while you're trying to capture the planet, which costs supply if you remember, then you might toss this in here and just try to add more weapons to cover more area. And let's see if I have a ship that's designed like that. One of these Verdant is intended for planet capturing. Now whether I gave it any guns is another question. Again, I did some weird stuff with them. So this would be a good example, except I think it's a support ship. Oh, did not realize support ships could use these. Okay, I need to pay more attention, but this would be a good example of it getting this. Only one allowed, but I'm not too concerned with broad range of fire. It's kind of hard to see. 1, 2, because it's still shooting in front of it. It's a support ship. It's fairly agile. Another great option for using it. More so if that's a railgun or something that eats more supply than a laser. But I digress. So, targeting sensor. This is one of the most fun systems to play with, mostly because of the range. So, things you don't want to use this with are your torpedoes. We'll go back to that supply cost, more so if you're using it in an offensive. We've got a supply cost of 28.5, 57, doubles your supply cost. So I can now shoot half as many torpedoes, but for significantly increased range. Where this shines is, let's see if I can find a laser ship, a Lancer of some sort. Have I built a Lancer? And I'll get to what the Lancer designs are meant to do. You know what, let's poke around the imported designs, see if we can find something. Not here. Here. Back. We're looking for a Lancer. What comes up? Nothing remotely what I was looking for. Okay, well, it was a shot in the dark. I can plop down a laser pretty quick. Here we go. Alright. Flagship. It goes without saying, I'm just throwing this down. Really, don't try using this design. It will not work for you. So what I want is something with the massive laser. Because you will note, just having one really powerful laser, as long as I'm staying out of range and out of combat, the damage is going up on it. And if I were making this an actual design, who knows, maybe I'd put it off to the side and shoot up this way. Not the point, not going to be an effective design. So let's go ahead and center this. So we've got range 452. It's slowly going up as we add stuff. So it's up 452, a new one's 450. But, so minimally going up. Who knows, that little bit can be worth it. Alright, so we've got a massive laser. That is size 400. Lancer. Alright, so we go back to modifiers. And we put... Oh, I completely skipped the plate. Wow, didn't realize I skipped that. Well, you don't want to use that with a Lancer because of that range penalty. Very good for close-in ships. If you're punching the enemy in the face, use a payload amplifier. Not much more to be said. Alright, targeting sensor. So, stick this on. Voila, our range is up. Now, supply cost doubles, but for a comparable sized, let's see, the other really long, a missile. So we are trying to match a range of 1022. I can't even do that with my basic missile launcher, but the smaller missile launcher that is here, right, close enough, is already using up 3,000 supply compared to its 2,000. For a damage per second, 218, 578. That supply cost, the increased supply cost from the targeting sensor is not that much of a problem for the laser, due to its already low supply cost. And if I remember, can we put multiple? Yes, okay, so you can also input multiple. So let's say we're trying, alright, so one more matches it, but we are now shooting at a range of 1,363, outranging missiles, and let's compare that to the torpedo, and we might even, we are just barely now outranging the torpedo. So at this point, you are shooting anything within your system-ish, with it being unable to shoot back. Now, if we also go into modifiers, and let's say this is an example of a ship that you're probably not going to want to put with supports, because they're not really going to be able to help you. They might be able to defend you if some other, with whatchamacallit, like pop back over to support, with the different behaviors. Various support ships could charge and attack you, so that could be an issue and might be why, oh, bugger. There went the design. Right, we're going to now repurpose this. Alright, so this is now a flagship. Right. Okay, well, this is now a flagship with a massive laser. Laser. Alright. Massive laser. Less pretty laser. Back to the size 400. And this is late game, so you should be building massive ships by this point. 400 is pretty big. By the time I hit late game, I'm typically building ships in size 500 or larger, so that I can take what's ever out there. I really like playing with the... Wow, I'm blanking on the name of it. At the end I'll get to it. It's the galaxy you keep exploring in. Oh... Rats. Gotta have a pretty ship. Even if it's a test ship, it's gotta be at least moderately symmetrical. Alright, there we go. Alright, so... Lancer. Modifiers. Targeting sensor. We had 2 of them on board. There we go. Increase the range to 1650. Massive damage per second. And let's say we want to go on here, and we just want to strap some engines on this. We could add a bulkhead. You'll notice none of these, that's the big thing, none of these are adding to maintenance. So even though, wow, that is a huge jump in cost, if you have time and a shipyard that you can just dedicate to building this, by the time you get this built, it will be able to handle itself. I mean, health per hex right now is at 93. If we wanted to strap some armor on it, oh, we had to talk about armor, so let's talk about armor. So, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about armor. Did I miss any modifiers? No. Alright. Armor. So, beautiful spot. Alright, so we've got this thing. We want to keep it safe. We do have a bulkhead on it. Already really expensive, so let's remove the bulkhead and add armor. So the 2 late game armors are liquid and neutronium. So, liquid armor. High health, flows from one hex to another hex, and typical armor, doesn't cost outside space. Downside, no damage resistance. So, very good at... it's going to be best. Alright, sorry Lancer. Let's pull up an existing heavily armored ship. Alright, so the Koala is a good example. So I already have it kind of set aside into armor sections. So let's say I'm concerned about missiles. My enemy's using a lot of missiles or weapons with very high pierce. So torpedoes, a lot of straight damage, rockets, lots of straight damage. And so I'm concerned that the armor is just going to get picked off one at a time, and then the lasers are going to come through and start chewing up sections. So what I do is I swap off to liquid armor. You will know, let's get 2 of these next to each other to compare them. 5-1 for maintenance, for cost maintenance, health 600. Here we have health 600, so they're the same in health, same in cost, same in maintenance. Production, they are the same. Mass, the liquid armor is lighter. So, liquid armor, a little bit better on ships because of that. But, overall, if I were to coat this, now railguns and things that do a lot of hitting are going to have an easy time punching through. Sorry, I got that backward. Missiles and things that do a lot of damage instantly are going to have a pretty easy time punching through. But then say this armor hex here, that is pretty safe. The only reason it exists is so that when this shield area fails, there's no bleed over into this section. It's not its bulkhead design. And say if I completely liquid armored this, which I would probably do once I got this to a late game design. Go ahead and finish that. These armors are then also protecting everything out here, which allows you to build armor reserves in sections of your ship, which allows you to bulkhead. By the time this fails, this whole area will have failed. And it's very immune to overwhelming. So if I were to multi-arm, let's say I'm concerned about missiles, so I go ahead and add the reactive plating in there, which damage threshold reduces missile damage. But then I go ahead and put the liquid armor to prevent railguns or lasers from killing it. So right there, got a beautiful late game armor design. Probably loop it around the edge, just protect that angle. And so by the time this fails, a missile goes through, hits, that armor goes away. Well, it's split across all the armors, but you understand. That's destroyed, that goes away, moves here, and the rest of it is protected. It's kind of like an armor's version of the shield. If I combine it all of a sudden I have all of these things acting as reservoirs. It's a very effective system and not to be underestimated. But that said, missiles are an easy way of countering it in the same way that it is good at countering missiles. Missiles will still get through, so you use reactive or something of the sort. That was not supposed to be that. Use reactive or standard armor if you want. Use it to stop the missiles from coming in. And use the liquid armor to shield yourself. And could continue this across the rest of the design. But so, let's say we continue this across the rest of the design. And you'll notice I'm leaving that. We'll get to that in a section. Or sorry, in a second. Give me a sec here. Drag. I think this is close enough to what we had. Looks like we had 4. Yes? Yes, alright. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to continue this here. Give us the reservoirs and the bulkhead. And then that was there. Alright, so here we've got an interesting conundrum. We've got... we have a section that if it dies, we lose the ship. The whole station, they just get some lucky hits, come through here, start blowing things to bits. And you know, we kind of don't want that to happen. I mean, I don't know about you, I like keeping my ships alive. So for this, there's Neutronium. Let's go ahead and get some comparisons going. Yeah, I want the ablative out here as well. And the Neutronium. So you'll notice the maintenance is the same. So again, for larger ships that you have the money to produce, Neutronium is a win because it does not have additional maintenance cost. The health, you got 1800, 600. 3 times the hit points. But you'll notice it has close to, it's 4 point something on the mass. I really don't feel like pulling out a calculator right now. It's close to 5, probably 4.7 something. Yeah, 4.7 something. So then, ablative, damage resistance on this, 833, 25. 11, 833. So you still have, do I have that selected? Yes, alright, so that there, ablative here. You still have a linear progression in damage resistance, but with all of the extra health, Neutronium is a gimme. Because of its extra cost, both production, you'll notice the 0.45 and the weight, and the cost, in terms of just pure cash, credits, energy, I forget what it's called. You really only want to use it in select areas. So here, to make sure this doesn't fail. And I would probably toss a little bit in here. I'm losing... Oh, I just noticed... Alright, so this might as well get the extra protection of having that. I can't attach it to the reserve because of the torpedo tube here. Well, I guess unless I lost this, probably worth it. Alright, so there. Now it's all back in reserve, but I still am kind of nervous about stuff drilling through this and starting to eat into here. I want to keep this as live for as long as possible, so maybe I go ahead and just Neutronium bunker it. No matter where fire is coming from, it will not be able to pierce because of Neutronium, and will give this area of the ship significantly extended life. Wait. Torpedo's launcher core must be exterior. Oh. My bad. There we go. So, really like this. Probably would do this. It's a pretty decent, maybe not great. Could be improved upon a little if I sat here and nitpicked for a couple hours, but not that bad of a late game design. Then we go into the modifiers. We've got a torpedo. We don't want to increase the range, or sorry, we don't want to increase the supply cost. We do want to decrease the supply cost. We said we weren't worried about speed, so go ahead and add one in. I think we can only do one of these. Yep. For the sake of these systems, we're going to hide them in the bunker. I think they get extra health. Yes, so just a little bit extra armor on that. Payload amplifier, we definitely don't want to decrease the range on this, because then we'll get a Lancer that comes and picks it off. It's all armored, so we're okay with decreasing the health of the system for an extra 20% reload speed. Then Bulkhead. Not really sure we actually need one. I mean, it would be a nice balancer to having this in. And let's see. Oh, let's see. What is the supply cost before we put in that? So 19,950. Let's go ahead and put this in and say we want a... I thought there was something to decrease this. Oh, this. Whoops. So minus 28.5 and 39.9. So that's a decent balance. If we wanted to, we managed to we decreased the speed, which we said for torpedoes isn't a problem. But we also, where is it? Increased the range to a wonderful from 29.7 to 44.55. So not inconsequential. Very nice for system defense. Might even be able to target people if they're trying to spy on you from just outside the edge of your system. So might try to work the synergies on this. For each individual ship, it's going to be unique. You really gotta... It's really a big balance between what you want your ship to do, where it's going to be sitting. For a ship that's moving into a system, I'd probably not use this. I like the range, but for a ship that's out there, maybe not. One exception, if you are building a mothership, we haven't gotten into hulls yet, so I should get into hulls, at least mention them. Support ship, flagship. If we're building a mothership, you'll notice it's only Star Children. Motherships do not use supply when they shoot. Now, they can't fire outside of friendly territory, you see in the bolded white text, but they don't use supply and can be built fairly big. So for those, modifiers like this increases the supply cost. Well, there isn't one. Holy crap, yes, please give me one or two of these. Also, things like this that decrease the supply cost, not useful at all. So there's a balance. There's a balance you've got to find for yourself, and slowly through trial and error and a lot of sandbox work, you get it to work. Final point of mention, the Titan hull. Build a lot of your massive ships as this. This is the late game hull. To be honest, I really don't use it all that often. I mean, more than often, most games are over by the time I get size 500 ships, courtesy AI or players. So, I mean, there are a lot of advantages to having it. I'm just going to straight out and say I'm not a fan of the Titan hull. It's got its uses. I understand people like it, and you can build some very complicated designs. Your hexes are incredibly small. The build costs are kind of nice. It doesn't reduce maintenance, so maintenance is always where I get stuck. So to me, it's never much of a problem. I'll either have tons of money, and I'll be using it to keep my fleet, or by building more ships. And then maintenance is what will slow me, not build cost. It does increase turret arcs. Again, stations, perhaps. Can you put this on a station? No, never mind. Flagships that function as movable stations, so if you're using fling beacons or gates, and you just want to park one by your gate and just build a massive ship that has little puny... Oh, I forgot to mention that. Oh, we'll get to the engines. One little puny ion engine to give you 0.04 U's per second squared, which will go down as you add all of your systems on. But if you have a gate, that means you can move it anywhere to defend your gate. If you've got a flame beacon, you can still throw it. Just make sure you're leaving it within range of another flame beacon, because we'll never be able to move back to you. But yeah, it's Titan hulls have their niche purposes. I really would not focus on building Titans. I would focus more, or I'd focus more in my ships on building more robust ships that can do a lot more tasks, and building up fleets of flagships that can work together when the need arises. Alright, so let's scroll through. I noticed I missed an engine. Is there anything else I missed describing? Sinew. I'll pull up one. Since I have it up, we'll discuss it. Back, blend off. Alright. For the... what is it? The Verdant races all need to have this. All of their systems need to be touching it. It does count as an exterior hex that you can shoot through, similar to cloak and stuff of the like. So this allows you to use it as armor, and since it takes, I think it's 70% of it? Yes, 70% of it to die. It is fairly hard to kill when you build massive spread out ships that allows you to use it as armor, and it gets around torpedoes and a lot of the lower DPS weapons or high pierce weapons like missiles and rockets, where their sole goal is to try to pierce through and kill systems. Here, let's go ahead and put armor out for some comparison. I've got health 46.9, 31.3, no damage resistance, so pretty vulnerable to lasers, but overall, because it also provides repair, it is about, if not more effective than coating in plate armor. I believe the weight is also less, significantly. I can have 3 of these health 33 for the cost of armor. Also looking at production, my Sinew's production is 0.07 compared to 0.31. So that is a little over 4. Now the cost and the maintenance is higher, so keeping a Verdant ship alive is harder to do. A little bit less expensive to get into the field. So your economy is going to function differently. Maybe Titan hulls make more sense with a Verdant then. I don't really know, because at this point you want to create the most massive ship you can. This one here is an anti-raider ship that I have. Its specific design is to catch raiders and then hit them with all of these things. And then it has various supply and support command to keep a small fleet of bombers with it. I think I have another one. I digress. I'm getting distracted. Yeah, this is the true hunter. It's just got supplies and power. Why do I think this is, I just have these to resupply quicker. Anyway, control. So yeah, Sinew, very nice, weak to lasers, but very useful when you start stacking it as armor and using it to stack your systems. Also, this whole design it's just hard to combat because there's no critical point of failure. The whole ship has to fail. Well, 70% of the sinew, which is functionally the whole ship, has to fail before the ship fails. So, it's an interesting concept. Weapons, hyperdense laser. I guess the best way of describing it is the missile of laser weapons. Very good at piercing very quickly, doesn't miss, but I don't really like it. Personal preference, really. Some people love it. Let's put a normal laser out there for comparison. The duration is much shorter, but higher damage, so yeah, it focuses on piercing and killing quickly. Has shorter range, costs more in supply. Overall, really prefer normal lasers to hyperdense, but to each their own. Cost-wise, production-wise, looks like there's no difference between the two. There are situations where a hyperdense makes sense, and that is when you have to deal the damage quickly because they have very high damage per second. Items like, say, railguns that you just want to burn through some of their supports really quick. Also, if they're using bulkheads and a low armor design, maybe go with a hyperdense, who knows. Muon. By contrast, this is a weapon that I love, mostly because of that second plus mark there, ignores damage resistance. Now, let's see, this also says pierces armor. Railguns do that too. Muons are a little better at it. Each armor piece has a hidden penetration value. What the weapon has to get to go through it. And so muons, when they hit a ship, will deal damage through multiple hexes at the same time. They will damage this hex, even though this one is not yet destroyed. So on the Verdant, not all that important, but on other ships, like, say, this one, if I had gone with a single layer of armor, or let's say I do a single layer of armor here on the back, they can now pierce that and take out my supplies without actually chewing through my armor barrier. And the only real option to combat that is to add more armor. Problem is, that increases the weight of the ship, makes it slower, makes them easier to stay behind you, punching through your armor. So, there's a trade-off. Muons, I really enjoy them. I really like railgun batteries as well, because of that double damage, which, if I remember correctly, is not reflected in that damage per second. Might be wrong, but last time I checked, it was not reflected. So, makes them better weapons than they appear. Absolutely love them. The inaccurate projectiles, okay, I will have to add the caveat. I do not like them for killing supports. Capital ships are fairly hard to miss, and you're going to land most of your shots, especially against larger targets late game. It's part of why the Muon is better late game than the railgun is early game. It's inaccurate, but it's so large you are literally missing the broadside of a planet. Not a bar, a planet. So, absolutely love it. Rapid rate, yeah. I mean, your arc isn't as good if we replace this. But that's not bad at all. Has the same modifiers you can put onto it. Yeah, if I stay here, I'm just going to keep saying good things. So, moving on. Propulsion. Now, engines for a lot of my ships are my expendable system. If my weapons are up, I'm still fighting. If my control is up, I haven't exploded yet. If my power is up, I'm still fighting, same for supplies and supports. Engines, if I lose them, I did not intend for this ship to retreat. Therefore, I'm not too concerned with it moving. Graviton engines are better on raiders. So let's say I have designed this ship not as a warship, But as a raider, alright, we're actually going to find a ship that I've designed as a raider, or we're just going to repurpose this thing. Alright, so this is a raider that does not have hyperdrive. Instead, it is using basic armor to keep itself alive. It is using... it's got a whole lot of supplies. The whole plan of this ship is to jump behind enemy lines using a fling beacon and capture their planet. And so you've got 5 or 6 of these guys jumping at once, hitting every planet and just overwhelming their defense and collapsing their economy. A really fun tactic to do, by the way. Have won various games by it. Against players, not just AI. So, the most important thing for this is the graviton engine. So, we go ahead and start sticking it in here. Let's see, what do we got speed up to? We gotta get speed higher than that. I've used tons of interior space, so bye-bye missile launchers. 2 extra interior space, 1's gonna be used there. So, less supplies. Gotta have a high speed. We'll get to power needs later, because I also have to talk about antimatter. Alright, it's a raider, so we also don't need support command. Lasers are fairly decent anti-support, so I might actually replace one of those with an anti-support weapon. Not real, huh? That's kind of anti-support. Let's get rid of that. Fill it in here. Take the lasers and grab that. Maybe a rocket pod for some basic defense. Use a supply, though. So the problem with missile weapons on raiders is they will eat your supply like candy. Alright, so there we've got some basic weapons to handle any situation we get tossed in. Get rid of that 4 and move it up there. So the big thing on this ship that we do not want to die is this graviton engine. The fact that we are putting it fairly central is so that it does not die. We are going to also rework the armor. Again, I'm trying to build a design. I love doing this, and I will get too overzealous. Alright, so we got a basic armor. I'd probably trim it down and use some sort of chainmail where it's protecting most, but not everything. Still have some basic defense, some basic armor. Block criticals. Probably grab that, stick it there. Go away. Grab that, stick it there. Grab that, stick it there. Get rid of that. There we go. Alright, the big problem is power. However, by late game, you should have already picked up the... it's under control. The antimatter generator. So, this provides the most power of anything. Also, you'll notice... oh, never mind, they might have removed that. It used to provide support capacity as well. I don't see it adding support capacity anymore. But you will notice the great excess of power. Now, pending if they've changed it since I last looked, antimatter generators can explode. Move. Alright. Uno momento. I have to hold shift while I do it. Forgot about that. So we kind of want to keep those things central and at least moderately protected. So we've got them here. They're providing more than enough power, so we'd probably switch off some of that. They're increasing our supply, and the big thing about them is they are not costing maintenance. So we can add, I mean, they're expensive to produce, but they are no maintenance. I need to stress this. They are no maintenance. So you can build a lot of these ships. I mean, your supply thing here is costing you 18 in maintenance and providing 109 in storage. This is costing you 18k to build, and let's see how much storage they provide. 195.3, 196.8, 1500 in storage. So not a lot. Roughly 9th, 8th. A little fuzzy on the math on there. But it's providing enough that it will get you out of hard situations and keep your guns running. So by increasing, and I'd probably cut this down to a single generator just to keep efficiency and size, and probably add a bulkhead to keep it from blowing up. But this means my raider now has pretty high speed for a ship, especially if I'm building it late game. Late game, and you know what, for good measure, let's apply the Titan hull we all know and love. Except that makes the ship tiny and hard to see. For the video, I'm not going to apply the Titan hull, but you'll also notice it did increase interior space, but look at all the numbers going down. Hexes, they don't scale properly. Alright, enough of that. Again, don't like Titan hulls. So alright, let's go ahead and save this battleship, go into the sandbox, and show off the Graviton engine. Spawn allied, battleship. You've all spotted it by now. There we go. Battleship. Alright, so... oh man, it's so dark. Alright, Battleship is facing that way. But I want Battleship to move this way. You'll notice it just starts moving that way. It is also not turning. Whereas, if I were to spawn something that wants to chase it, say the Lavash, good luck, it's got better weapons, it has to turn and then move. This is very good for, let's say, just hitting a planet and sitting in orbit. You probably also want to design it as a space station, not a battleship like I did there for whatever reason, and have it facing forward. You want your weapons to shoot in every direction. And look, this guy's still trying to turn and catch it, and I've covered most of the system because I don't have to turn whichever way. I can just whoop, whoop, whoop. So yeah, very, very good for raiders if you can get your hands on it. Let's see, any other systems we missed? In here. Weapons, covered them all in this in the last video. Defense, shield generators. Very nice. I'm much more a fan of armor. Liquid armor kind of, for me, gets around the whole idea of needing a shield generator. But they're still kind of nice. I mean, not a whole lot to explain. They're shield generators. Okay, one word of warning. Do not use them in lieu of armor. You still want light armor on these ships because of that minus there. Some damage can still get through, and unless you have a system that can cope with that, they could have a critical hit that goes through. FTL, self-explanatory, equipment, emergency supplies. Okay, very nice. I love the ability to generate supplies, useful on raiders and warships. I typically don't like sacrificing the internal room, which I could just fill with supplies. Just put supplies there instead. But has its uses. Especially, like I said, on raiders that you don't necessarily want to have to keep pulling back. You want them to be steamrolling your opponent's economy. Yeah, I think that covers everything. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's all for this. After this, I'm really not sure what I'm going to do in the way of videos. I play a lot of games, and to be honest, I kind of like recording them and putting them up, but I'm kind of in a lull, and I don't know what I want to do, so if there's anything you want to see, let me know. I've got time and I love doing this. So thanks for watching, and see y'all later, I guess.